What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackmine, joined by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1 week through organized team activities, and we got plenty of takeaways, plenty of observations, plenty of action that occurred with two quarterbacks, a new offensive system, and some questionable wide receiver play, but we'll dive into all that. Plus, our analysis 1 week in from the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers, and the corners, and a starting linebacker that could be a cut candidate. At least that's what some analysts are saying. We'll dive into whether or not that is realistic. I was telling you before the show, Nick, I went to the dentist this morning, and I walked in, and they said, hey, we got to numb you up. For this one, we got to numb you up. And I said, all right, I have to be on camera in an hour. Is that going to be okay? They said, yeah, you might have a hard time talking, but you'll be okay. I literally feel like half of my face doesn't exist right now. I don't even know if I could see properly. I feel real weird. So if I just start going limp at any point, just ignore it. Just keep it going. But how you feeling, my friend?
I'm good. I really respect you a lot. I think this is really brave. People say that podcasters and journalists that, this is a cushy job, that, we don't really go through, any trials or, difficult circumstances, but, playing through injury like this is really inspirational. And I tip my cap to you. This is great work.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying. It has taken everything in me to not drool on camera. So, I'm holding it together, doing what we got to do. If I don't, nobody's getting hurt right now, so I can't even come. If Corey Trice has come back from an ACL, if Najee Harris is playing through knee injuries, if this has all got to happen, I will be here with half a face for this podcast. No doubt about it. We are 1 week through OTAs. Plenty of action. Got to see the first reps of Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, a new wide receiver core, skinny Najee Harris. Plenty going on. We leave there after 3 practices, which I've actually learned from other reporters across the league in the last week that, shout out the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I was talking to a lot of people going, hey, you going to OTAs today? Your team got OTAs? And they're like, oh, no, we only get to watch once a week. I was like, wow, that sounds really boring, to be honest with you. That sounds terrible. So shout out the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're there all 3 days. Your observations. What did you take away from week 1 of organized team activities?
Yeah, and I want to be careful with this because, it's football in shorts. It's not really anything definitive at all. But I was a little bit more impressed with the Steelers' depth than I think I was going into the week. I think particularly at corner, at receiver, there were and receiver too, there were a couple guys who stood out in ways that I'm like, oh, that's like not someone that I expected to really be impressive at all. It wasn't someone I expected to contribute at all. But I think they've got a little bit better depth than I thought they did have. I think I've spent the offseason kind of thinking, okay, they still need one more guy here. They still need one more guy here. But they, at receiver and corner, I think there are a couple guys who are really stepping up in big ways and making some plays that, Darius Rush comes to mind, Quez Watkins comes to mind, Scotty Miller as well. Those are guys who I thought had pretty good weeks. And, obviously football and shorts and everything like that. But I think that there's a little bit more there than I had given the Steelers credit for. And I don't think some of these moves that we've been talking about throughout the offseason are as immediately pressing as maybe I thought they were. I don't think, if they played a game tomorrow, I wouldn't be as concerned about, the pass catchers or the defensive secondary as I was, maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago or earlier this offseason. I think there's something there. And I want to see these guys put on pads. I want to see them actually be able to compete. But I've been pretty impressed with how these other guys, quote unquote, other guys are stepping up and making some plays.
So I agree with you with the corners. I think Darius Rush looks real good. I think Corey Trice gives me a lot of hope. Like I'm at a point where instead of going and signing a Patrick Peterson or a Cam Sutton or something right now, just see what you have in these guys, because I think that they've shown. I mean, Darius Rush might have been like the star of the week right now. He's coming up with play after play seemingly every day, which, I mean, that's awesome. That's a 5th round pick a year ago who's bounced around the NFL already in 1 year in the league, showed up here, played, I think it was like 30 snaps his first game, and then maybe played like 15 the rest of the way. So hopefully he's a guy that takes a step forward. I'm really high on Darius Rush, and I think right now I feel much better about the cornerback room than I did a week ago. I think that there's an argument to be made of giving these guys an opportunity before you go and get a veteran and waste an opportunity on some second-year guys where I wasn't super high on give a 5th round or a 7th round pick a chance in his second year. I don't know how strong I was on that. I feel good about those. I think I disagree with you with the wide receivers, though. I think I'm more concerned today about guys like Van Jefferson than I was a week ago. While, Quez Watkins looks pretty okay at times, and I think honestly, I think Marquez Callaway is one of the more impressive names in that group. Van Jefferson, I think, has not looked very good to me, and Roman Wilson, I don't think is ready to, at least right now. It's a week in, and there's a long way to go. You got to put pads on. But I think right now, if you're banking on Roman Wilson being a number 2, I'm not super high on that. And I don't think the Steelers, there's been a couple of times where I'm watching him pass and I'm going, okay, if that was George Pickens, would he have come down from that catch between him, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Joey Porter Jr., or is that just a lost cause because, it was Van Jefferson or it was Scotty Miller or it was whoever? I am a little worried about the wide receivers. I'm not as sold maybe as you are, but at the same time, maybe it's good that we have 2 different opinions there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's fair about Roman, and I think that's fair about Van Jefferson. I think Roman, I wouldn't say I'm concerned, but what we saw was what we saw. I mean, I think the fact that he's only, I don't think he might be listed at 6 foot. I don't think he's actually 6 foot, and I think his lack of size kind of showed up a little bit, especially when he was facing guys like Joey Porter when they tried to bump him outside. Roman, I think, has a long way to go. So I think that's a little concerning. I think I'll stand by my comment that I think the depth is better than I expected, but I think you're right. I think this is all kind of predicated on Roman being a wide receiver too, right?
Yes.
This all only really works if Roman's able to be that guy, and so far he hasn't looked like that guy. That comes with all the caveats that we've talked about it's week 1, it's this guy's first real practices as an NFL player. He's got a long way to go, but there's also a lot of time for him to work on these things. So, I wouldn't say I'm concerned just yet, but again, if they had to play a game tomorrow, would Roman Wilson be in the starting lineup? Probably not, he's probably not seeing the field very much at all. So I think that's concerning, but I don't think you're wrong there. I think this wide receiver group does have a ways to go, even if, I was impressed with maybe some of those guys out there.
Yeah, I think that lower in the depth chart, me and Nick were talking yesterday, it's more of you need another guy. It doesn't have to be, you need somebody with more potential. It doesn't have to be a Brandon Ayuk. It doesn't have to be a Deebo Samuel. You just need somebody who could become something bigger than what maybe Scotty Miller or Van Jefferson could become. Because I think that they're what you're getting out of those guys. And even if it's, a reliable set of hands and 250 to 300 yards in a season. Okay, every roster has those guys. They're good to have on the roster. And some rosters don't have those guys, and it's concerning. You need where the drop-off is most significant is George Pickens to the rest of the group. So that's where you need to at least have more potential. And I think there's names out there, you toss John Mechie out there, you toss Juwan Jennings out there, names that probably have more upside than what the Steelers have right now that would probably fill that role. At the same time, I'm very impressed with Calvin Austin. I think Calvin Austin, I think he's put in the work. He looks a little bit bigger, just stocky-wise. His speed is still certainly there. I just kind of feel like in year 3, he looks more fluid, I guess would be the word, more confident out there. I felt like year 2 last year, it still felt like he was a rookie. This year, it's Calvin Austin's, you could tell that his cuts are a lot sharper. You could tell that his agility is a lot stronger. There's just parts of Calvin Austin's game that I'm not ready to say he's ready to be a starter. I'm just saying that, for a guy that I think has a ton of potential, this is the first time that I'm seeing that potential and kind of thinking that he might be able to grow with it.
Yeah, and I agree on Calvin. I think he's made some pretty significant improvements, and I think you can see them. This is a guy who didn't play at all during his rookie season. You got to take that into account. Last year was basically his rookie year. We talk about it being in year 3. This is basically year 2 for him. And I think he's kind of shown a little bit that he's ready to not be as much of a gadget guy anymore, that he is a full-blooded wide receiver, that he can do all these things, that he's not just, a gadget guy running jet sweeps and returning punts. He can actually be a real receiver catching passes. He has a more developed route tree, things like that. And that, even if he's a little shorter, that he can stick on the field for a while. He can be a 3-down player. I think he's still got, I want to see him do it in pads. I want to see him do it in live opportunities, obviously. Yeah. But I think he certainly has taken a step forward, and that should give you some confidence as well.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so my big takeaways are Najee Harris, I think, is a big one. Slimming down. I don't know how many pounds he's down, but I'm excited to see what a slimmer, a skinnier Najee Harris could look like. Also, I think Pat Freiermuth really looks good. It's only been 3 days and it's only pads, but it's more so. It kind of feels like a very vanilla version of Arthur Smith's offense, that's all this is. This is as vanilla as it gets. This is the install plays. This is the 90%. Half of this team isn't going to be here in August. So let's not give all of our secrets away between now and June 14th or 13th or whatever. I think that the vanilla version of Arthur Smith's offense includes a lot of Pat Freiermuth, and I think that is impressive. And Najee hasn't done almost anything, but he's still got a pep in his step. He's a guy that, I don't know, like I watch him and I want to talk to him because I don't know how to word this question when we do, but I want to hear him because in my words, in my head, it's Najee Harris is always a dude that's active on the field. That's, always kind of has some energy and some flow to him. He's always a leader when he's actually going through these drills. This year kind of feels like he's like, he's got some enthusiasm, and he's always got enthusiasm, but it's like almost more. It's just a stronger vibe. So I want to hear what his, outlook on the season is, what his outlook on, earning another payday is, that kind of stuff. But Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth, I would think, are my two biggest observations. And then obviously, Joey Porter Jr. bulking up, which did not need to happen and just looks sharper, is obviously impressive.
Yeah, I think Najee is really interesting because it's a guy who the definition of his game was bruising running back, run with a lot of power, run right through people's faces. And I think this year is going to be a little different because the offensive line improvements, I'm not expecting him to get, hit at the line of scrimmage on every run that he's taking every time that he's carrying the ball. I think he's going to have a little bit more room to run. And for a guy who I think people really forget that Najee had a ton of explosive runs last year. Like he was not the running back that I think exists in everyone's mind. He was breaking off big 20-yard runs. He was much more explosive than people give him credit for. And to see him maybe get some more room to run and use that speed with a slim down body and maybe adding a bit more speed to that, I'm really excited to see what he can do. I think Najee is determined. I think he did, whether or not he asked for them to decline his 5th-year option or not, who knows what the real story is there. But I think he's pissed off either way. Like I think he sees what the market is for running backs, and I think he is really, really eager to prove his value. Not that, in my mind, I think he already has. To a lot of other people, he hasn't. And you can see kind of the determination on Najee's face. You can see the focus. You can see that he's pretty locked in my mind. And I think he's the improvements he's made to his body are reflective of that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he's like, I'm excited to see what Najee Harris brings. I don't know how much I believe the Steelers declined his 5th-year option because they're, just want to see how he fits in Arthur Smith's offense and then they'll extend him. I think he's got an opportunity to say, hey, look, you should have did that. You should have picked up the 5th-year option. And I think that's exciting to go. I also think it's hilarious how we're 4 years into Najee Harris's career and every single offseason we're talking about how his body looks different and impressive in one way or another. And this year it was dropping down. But people have pointed out, like Le'Veon Bell dropped 20 pounds his 2nd year in the NFL and was super impressive. You've had guys lose weight or slim down who are these bruising running backs who became more versatile and kind of, saw some improvements because of it. I don't think Najee Harris necessarily needs a ton of improvement. I think he's an impressive running back, but I am excited to see what just like a slimmer Najee looks like. And I think that's super impressive. We haven't talked about, we touched on the corners, but I think we should dive into those more. And then obviously the quarterbacks. What is your impressions been of the cornerback group, Joey Porter and Dante Jackson included?
Yeah, Dante Jackson I think has been quiet, which for a corner generally a good thing, know. He's not standing out because he's not getting beat for, a bunch of passes or a bunch of touchdowns or anything like that. And Joey Porter is Joey Porter. So I have no concerns there. But yeah, Dante Jackson can't really say much about him, but I think that's a good thing, quite honestly. I think Dante Jackson being, I don't know, a league average corner is something that you could absolutely live with.
Yep.
And you touched on Darius Rush too. I 1000% agree. He was probably the best player at OTAs this week. Like of anyone on the field, I don't think there was anyone who had a better week. This guy was getting challenged, but he was making plays just about everywhere. Big receivers, small receivers, guys with speed, guys with power. He was making plays against all of them. So Darius Rush, a lot bigger than I
remember. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, like huge. Like at least 6'3". I would have to imagine he's got some weight on him too. Like, man, this guy looks like he looks the part. I'll say that.
Yes.
The thing that I am a little worried about, I don't think any of their slot options have really stood out. I don't think Beanie Bishop has looked particularly very good. I'm trying to think of the other Anthony Averett. I don't think has been particularly impressive either. I don't think there's an answer at slot corner right now. I think they have options right now, but none of those options have really, none of them stood out to me during week one, at least. I don't know if you feel any differently.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. The slot guys have not, and maybe it's because like I'm not noticing it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm not paying attention, but you've noticed like a play where like Dante, even if you just caught it like out of the corner of your eye, like, oh, Dante Jackson, that was good coverage on like a guy like Calvin Austin, who's way faster than almost anybody on this team. And you're like, oh, okay, that was good. Or Joey Porter Jr. is Joey Porter Jr. And you immediately, I don't think I've seen Joey Porter Jr. get beat in practice in like a year since like George Pickens was roasting him last training camp. And it's the same, like Darius Rush is coming up with, just like you said, play after play after play. Corey Trice looks good in individual drills. The inside guys, I mean, like I haven't even noticed Beanie Bishop. Haven't even noticed him on the field. Anthony Averett, I only notice when somebody has the football and he's running behind him, like, which isn't good. And I'm not saying that that these guys can't be the answer. I'm just saying that 1 week through, it's not the best signal that Darius Rush and Corey Trice, who isn't even on team drills, are more exciting to talk about than your starting slot corner, who's a veteran in this league and who is being viewed as a guy who should start. I agree. I think that, again, it's early. It's in shorts, but my outlook is very simple. This wide receiver core is not impressive enough to say, like last year, if it was Deontay Johnson and George Pickens and they were beating Joey Porter Jr. all the time, you're like, all right, yeah, like that's, I mean, I would probably get beat by George Pickens and Deontay Johnson too. This year, if it's not George Pickens, you know, you're like, oh, okay, you shouldn't have got beat. Like you should at least be competing at all times with these guys. And I think at times that's not the case, which is concerning. I think the slot corner is just like you said, like the only like out of the group.
Yeah. And when you're going into a season where you've got to face, you know, Jamar Chase twice.
Yes.
You've got to face Zay Flowers. Yeah. Yeah. Like Zay Flowers twice. I'm trying to think of who else on the schedule. I mean, Devontae Smith, there are other names out there, but I mean, just in the AFC North alone, like slot receivers or slot corner is not a position that you can afford to overlook if you're the Steelers. It's really, really important for them. It's really, really critical going into this year. So, and I don't think they're overlooking it at all. That's not what I meant to imply, but I mean, none of these options are really standing out at this point. And so that's the thing that we're going into next week in the practices, the rest of the practices that they have leading up to mid-June is, okay, are any of these guys going to start making some plays? Are any of these guys going to stand out? Are any of these guys going to give the Steelers a reason to not look at Patrick Peterson, to not look at Cam Sutton? Because at this rate, you are going to have to more seriously consider a Cam Sutton if you want to win football games against the schedule.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like, somebody asked me, like, when would the Steelers trade for a wide receiver? I think it's the same time they'd sign a corner. Like, I think it's open for any time. You know, like, I think from this day forward, they'd look at it and say, all right, look, we got a first glimpse. We understand. Because that's the thing is, like, that the rest of this team looks so good. You know, it looks deep. Even, like, every position. Like, every single one of them. You're like, oh, okay, look at that was an impressive rep by whoever. You know, and to have really two glaring needs where you're like, oh, okay, look at, I think that Omar Khan's looking at it and going, a move could be made at any moment as long as it makes sense. And I think the Steelers are working towards getting those done. So it wouldn't surprise me if you know, tomorrow, but it also wouldn't surprise me if, you know, the middle of July, they're making a move, or August they're making a move. I'm just saying that the window, I think, has finally opened to where a guy like Cam Sutton could be headed to the Pittsburgh Steelers, or Patrick Peterson, or anybody who's on their radar. I agree. The big question, the big position, the one everybody wants to know about, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. We're 3 days in. Both of them saw plenty of action from both of them. I think I would say a pretty even 50-50 split. Russ is definitely taking those first team reps, but I think Justin's getting a fair share of shots here. Definitely fair share of shots. Your takeaway from the quarterbacks?
Yeah, kind of an up and down week from the both of them. I think Russ had a pretty good first day. Justin had a pretty down first day. Justin came back on the second day and I thought was a lot better. Russ maybe took a step back, and then both were just kind of average on the third day. I think Justin Fields is at a bit of a disadvantage in OTAs when you're just kind of playing in shorts, just because it's no secret that a lot of his value is in his legs and is in scrambling and is in making plays as an athlete and running the football. And he just can't show that off here. But, if you're looking at Justin Fields and you're trying to say, look, we need you to address some of these concerns that people have about you as a passer, I wouldn't say that he's done that so far. I wouldn't say that he's kind of alleviated any concerns about the way he can throw the football. I don't think even kind of the big arm stuff, like being able to chuck it real deep, has shown up much either. That's not to say if it won't. That's not to say that he can't get coached up and improve in certain ways, but it just hasn't shown up yet. Wilson, I think, has been fine. I think he's gotten the football where it needs to go. I think it still kind of looks like he's a brand new quarterback in a brand new offense with a bunch of new receivers and a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterbacks coach. I think that has all kind of showed up. Like there are times where he makes some decisions where I'm like, I don't think that's where they don't look like smart decisions. And you kind of wonder, is that Russell Wilson? Is that just kind of being in a new environment like this? For now, I'm willing to defer to it being kind of a new environment, new system, everything like that. But not exactly a banner week for either of these quarterbacks. And if it persists, I'll start getting worried. But for right now, I'm willing to chalk at least the struggles with Wilson up to being in a new place, new system, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think Russ has looked like I don't know, unimpressive isn't the word, but just very bland. Like very like, there hasn't been that moment of like, oh, damn, that was good, and there's been a bunch of moments of like, okay, that was a rough throw. That was a bad decision. Shouldn't have done that one, or like, I don't know. But Justin, at the same time, you've had some like, I think the difference is, Justin, you've had some throws where it's like, wow, that was a bad throw. Like that was, balls wobbling all over the place. And you're just like, that was not good. That was not good. Russ hasn't had those. But Justin at the same time has had like, a couple of moments where it's like a play that you could kind of tell that if you were in pads, if this was game action, like he would have made something crazy happen. And you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. That was a nice play by Russ or by Justin. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, it's hard to give anybody an upper hand after week one. I don't think anybody actually has an upper hand after week one, but I think that Justin has excited me a little bit more than Russ. I would like to see more of, and that goes back to the wide receiver conversation. Like, when George Pickens is here every single day and this is training camp and you're really practicing the offense and you're letting those throws deep and, that kind of stuff, are those explosive plays there? Because that's what both of these quarterbacks are known for. For right now, it's a lot of like crossing routes and easy like dump offs and, check downs and that kind of stuff. And you're like, all right, like this is boring, and Russ isn't bringing that flash that Justin just like naturally has every time he touches the ball. And I think I agree with you. Like it's nobody's been unimpressive. It's just more so like you're waiting for an opportunity for somebody to be impressive, because right now nobody has.
Right. And I think there's you got to remember that like safe is generally pretty good for this offense. Like I don't know, like I don't think you need not sure the Steelers need a star quarterback in order to be successful and win this year.
No.
That's the thing about the decision making that, again, if it persists, will worry me with Russ. Like, just make the right choice. Like, I don't need you to be Patrick Mahomes. I don't need you to be, Justin Herbert or whoever the hell else is your favorite quarterback. I just need you to be solid. I need you to take care of the ball and hit the open, make the layups. And so the fact that hasn't totally been there just yet is a little concerning, but
Yep.
I'm not burying him yet. And I think I suspect it'll improve in week 2 and on and on and on.
Yeah. I think once we get to training camp and these guys are actually have an opportunity to just like take off and, do some crazy things, that's when this competition will become like real. And you'll be able to be like, oh, okay. Because I think right now, like, Russ is the starter. And, I walked in, like I caught him talking to Arthur Smith in the locker room. And I was like, that's a starting quarterback right there. Like, Justin Fields is sitting on the other side doing nothing. There's this Arthur Smith's talking to the starting quarterback. But I think once you're able to showcase stuff, this becomes more real as time goes on. There is one more topic of conversation I want to touch on. Pro Football Focus, I believe, maybe it was Bleacher Report. I think it was Bleacher Report. Picked one player for every team that they believe could be a cut candidate this summer. And one name that has, he's been mentioned by ESPN. He's been mentioned by us. He's been mentioned by pretty much everybody is Cole Holcomb as the potential cut candidate for the Pittsburgh Steelers. With Bleacher Report writing, quote, "The most unfortunate part of Cole Holcomb's season-ending knee injury is that it might lead to his release. This offseason, the Steelers signed high-priced Patrick Queen and added Peyton Wilson in the draft. Pittsburgh may simply move in a new direction away from Holcomb, who posted 54 tackles in 8 appearances last season." I think the Cole Holcomb argument, there's obviously one to be made, but do you think that he's a real cut candidate at this point in the offseason?
I think it's real. I think he's certainly a candidate, but I don't think this is a move that I would make. I don't think you save enough money over the next couple of years. I think it comes out to about, you average it out, it's like $10 million over 2 years.
Yeah.
It's close, so it's like 4 1 year and then 6 the next year, something like that. To me, that's like not really worth it. I think that Cole Holcomb is a pretty good player when he's healthy. And we've seen what happens when the Steelers get thin at linebacker, like what happened last year. I think keeping a guy like him as insurance, a veteran, a guy who has played and performed in this system, I think is really, really valuable. So I wouldn't give up on Cole Holcomb like this, especially because it's just really, you're not saving that much money in the grand scheme of things. And, like, what are you going to use that $4 million on, or that $4 million this year and $6 million next year? What are you going to use that on? Probably nothing really of consequence.
No.
It doesn't really create enough space for you to do anything crazy. And I would just rather have, an insurance piece at inside linebacker, because we've seen how thin that position can get and how costly it can be when that position gets thin. So I'd hang on to Cole Holcomb. I don't really think that. I think he's certainly a candidate, and like you said, there's an argument to be had, but I don't think it's a move that I would make.
No, I agree with you. I think that you've learned your lesson last year as the Pittsburgh Steelers to have an abundance of players at every position, especially ones that get hurt. Inside linebacker is one of them. My other thing is, look, before the NFL draft, my thought was you could release Cole Holcomb because you'd go out and sign somebody else, and then you draft an inside linebacker, and you feel pretty good about where you are, and you didn't really need Cole Holcomb. It's about to be June. Like, at this point, you've gone through, like, this man is rehabbed with you for a whole year. He's in the locker room. He's in team meetings. Like, he's around. What? I don't get you would have moved on from him already. That's my thing. This would have happened 2 months ago instead of in June. After you wouldn't wait until he's back on the field and then be like, all right, pal, you're cut.
See ya.
Yeah, like, that's just not how those things work. If you were going to cut him, you were going to cut him earlier. Again, like, if they desperately need the money, I get it. Like, he's probably top of that list, but they don't desperately need the money. They've already restructured Alex Highsmith's contract before the NFL draft, and they didn't do anything with it. So they still have money sitting there. Like, they have options. And at the same time, like, TJ Watt's contract, Minkah Fitzpatrick's contract, Alex Highsmith's. Oh, no, they just did that one. They have contracts to renegotiate, to restructure so that you could create more cap space. It's just, and you don't have a position like if you go out and sign Cam Sutton, you're not spending more than like $3 million, $4 million on Cam Sutton. If you go out and trade for a wide receiver, you might spend a boatload of money. But I think that realistically, Brandon Ayuk is probably off the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, I just don't think that I don't think they're looking to pay somebody $30 million. And if that's the case, the $4 million doesn't really play a major role in helping create that cap space. So I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. Like, I think you'd rather have a guy who was very impressive last year be on your team, especially when, like, how many rookies can you bank on to make a significant impact before you're no longer a Super Bowl team? You know, like no Super Bowl teams going out there with 4 or 5 starting rookies in major positions being like, all right, that's it. You know, so Peyton Wilson, I get it. I think he's got a ton of upside. I think the Steelers would love for him to be inside linebacker 4 during the season and let Cole Holcomb go into a starting role and make that even keel. Sounds good. You got 4 guys that you really believe in.
Yeah. 100%. And I think you make a good point about the rookies. Like, I love these last 2 draft classes. Yeah. I'm not comfortable with leaning entirely on them.
No.
For 50% of your starting lineup or whatever it is. Like, that's what I think it's going to come out to. Is, I mean, I guess if you want to throw George in there too, I mean, like, they're past. Like, you'll have at least, if you can include Jalen, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like, I don't know, there's at least 10 rookies, or there's like 10 guys who are in their 3rd year at max that would be starting on this team.
Yeah.
Which and for so many of those guys to be rookies is a little concerning.
Yeah, you don't. No team's gonna. You know what I mean? Veteran play helps, and especially like that. Cole Holcomb is like prime, 28 years old. That is peak NFL level right there. You know, that's what you're looking for. He was good last season. I don't see it. Maybe, maybe things change, but for right now where we stand, I'm not totally convinced. With that said, we're going to head out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as we've been saying, please go subscribe to our new YouTube channel, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk Clips. So we head back to OTAs next week, but first, make sure to enjoy a beautiful weekend in the Berg. Peace.